Before we get started, just to kind of give you all a little bit of a breakdown of who we are, why are we doing a presentation. Chris and I represent a club in Kentucky, Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. We have a YouTube channel. We'll put that channel up on the last slide. We would encourage you all to subscribe because what other clubs are doing can be inspirational for your own club. And Chris and I started a club channel 5 years ago because there weren't a lot of those out there on YouTube. There are some really good channels out there for individuals, and they do a wonderful job. But we were seeing that clubs really weren't being represented. So we wanted to help more clubs. And so that's the presentation that we're going to be going over. We know Mike Coulter, who helps put on this event every year personally. We've interviewed him a couple of times. And we wanted to see if we could maybe help other clubs. And that's what Chris and I are here to do today. We're not special. We're just two guys that got excited about ham radio a few years ago. And we found a club in Lake Cumberland, Somerset, Kentucky, with a wonderful president and secretary, Don and Wanda Muncie, AC4DM and WM4LM, that gave us the space to do a lot of the things that we do today. And you need leadership. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think we've got our three contestants. Two of them anyway. Here's our third one. All right, Chris, I'm going to kick this off. You ready?
Yep, let's go.
All right, I had enough of that. All right. All right, 10 ways to grow a club. And Chris, keep your face in that microphone as much as possible when we're talking so that the live stream picks us up good.
Roger.
10 ways to grow a club. Now, folks, we put 10 things together. You guys will come up with your own things as well. This isn't meant to be an end-all of lists, but it's a good starting point. Here's what we ran into, and it's not to badmouth anybody's club at all. We had a club in Somerset, Kentucky that had been a phenomenal club back in the early 70s through the 80s, 90s, and even the early 2000s. But a lot of the members were aging out. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a normal progression, okay? And these guys and gals had done all kinds of stuff through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But now they're in their 70s and 80s. They've been there and they've done that. So Chris and I come along and we're talking to Don and Wanda, the president and secretary of the club, and Ben Olo, who was the vice president of the club at the time. And we said, would you guys be willing to allow Chris and I to do some new things within the club format? And they said, absolutely. And so Chris and I got started really just trying to start a YouTube channel for the club, not for us. The YouTube proceeds that we make from the ads and things that run go to the club. They don't go to us. Okay. We recommend if you want to do something for your club on social media, start a YouTube channel. If you've got somebody who can maybe do a little, doesn't have to be fancy. If you guys have been watching our videos, they're not fancy. But they do give an impression of what a club could be doing from week to week, year to year, and so forth. So the first thing Chris and I want to mention, and it's not even on our slides, well, actually we got a slide coming up, is for this to work, you've got to have some leadership that wants it to work and is willing to put in the time and the effort. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? We could put 10 things, 20 things up here on how to grow your club, but if you don't have leadership that will get behind a core group of people that want to take on some bigger projects, get involved with the community, reach out to young people, whatever that might be, for your club, it's going to be different for every club. But if you don't have that core group of people and that leadership, none of this is going to work, is it, Chris?
No, and there's a really good word you can pair with leadership. Energy. We need some energy. Again, that is what had happened to our club. It was a great club and still had lots of knowledge and lots of talent. But they were getting older. The size of people who showed up for club meetings had dwindled significantly. The people who showed up for work days had dwindled significantly. We've still got almost 100 members now.
Right.
It's grown some, But like any organization, how many people show up on a work day? How many people come to your meeting? It's a fraction of that, right? Somebody's got to have some energy. We need some energy to put into leadership. Okay, any organization works the same way. Okay, and maybe you're that person. So I'm looking at all of you today. Maybe you can be that person, but try to find at least one or two others. The more, the better. But at least a couple, 3 or 4 people to help, because it's a lot of work. This is a hobby. We all enjoy the hobby, but it's a lot of work, just like anything would be. So try to find some help.
Absolutely. So let's go to the first thing that we wanted to talk about this morning for you all. Chris and I are professional instructors, so if it sounds like we've been in front of people, we have. We do this for a living. But for IT, we're both IT instructors. We want to look for ways to get members involved. Now, here's a story that Chris and I have heard, I don't know how many times. Well, I went to a club meeting and they didn't treat me very well. Or I went to a club meeting and they just didn't have time for me. Or I went to a club meeting and they just don't do anything. How often have we heard that, Chris?
Well, we still hear it.
Still hear it.
We still hear it. You know, with access to the entire world through the internet, you hear from people in all kinds of countries, and we've got viewers from all countries, and you hear it. I don't like clubs. Why don't you like clubs? Some of the people are mean. They didn't recognize me when I showed up. They don't do anything. You know, it doesn't matter what country you're in. It's the same stories typically, and that's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. We want to grow the hobby. We want more people to come in, right? Not less. All right, so we've been trying to change that, and as Brian said, when we looked at starting a YouTube channel, there's a lot of really great YouTube channels. For a relatively niche, area of ham radio, there's some big YouTube channels out there. Not like other things on YouTube, but for ham radio, to have 5 or 6 channels over 100,000 subscribers, that's awesome. We're not there yet. We're counting on every one of you to help us get there, though. Subscribe. But you've got to help your members. Recognize them when they walk in the door. Ask them, what are you interested in? And if they have no idea, just start showing them things. But try to get them to show up to events so you can show them things. Try to help them out.
So one of the things that we did, and number one here, one of our first things that we like to encourage other clubs to do is come up with a large project. Now, large is in quotes. That's going to be different for every club. We happened to sit down with Don and Wanda, the president and the secretary of the club at that time, and we said, Don, have you guys thought about building an emergency communications trailer? And Don said, well, yes, we have. We just didn't build one, but we thought about it. And Chris and I go, well, we could do some fundraisers. Maybe we get a really inexpensive trailer or something like that. And Don, you guys haven't met Don probably. Rick's met Don and Devin's met Don. Don's this 81-year-old man. Well, he's older now. And he's done so much ham radio in the past, he's got just gobs and gobs of gear. And so we started talking about this MCOM trailer. He goes, well, I've got a trailer out in the barn. Just sitting there.
We started one, and it's been sitting out in the barn for 8 or 10 years, I think, at that point.
Right, 8 or 10 years, nothing had happened to it. That was our first large project as a club, was to build an MCOM trailer.
After we got over the shock.
Yeah.
What do you mean we've already got a trailer? Oh, yeah, it's out in the barn.
It's out in the barn. Never been pulled out, hardly ever. Now, as you'll see, we've got graphics on it. We've built it. If you go watch the video series that we have it on YouTube, and this is some of our earlier videos, so they're not our best videos, but we built it out. Now, is it fancy? No. Don't allow doing something perfectly get in the way of doing something good. Okay? It's not about perfect. You build your MCOM trailer based on what your needs are and what you think your club can benefit from. MCOM trailer may not even be in your wheelhouse right now, but come up with a project that a core group of people can get behind every year. We try to have an annual project that we can get behind every year. Number 2. Go ahead, Chris.
Look for ways to raise money. Everybody's favorite subject. Raise your hand if you love going out and asking people for money. Come on now, don't be shy. Almost never anybody's favorite subject, but necessary for any organization. Well, one of the early things that Brian and I did, being the young kids on the block. We were already in our 50s when we joined the club, and we were the young kids in our club. But we took a look, and we work in IT, and we said, well, what can we do? The president and vice president of our club, who had been in the club since the 70s, they were paying for pretty much every club expense out of pocket, just to float the club. They love ham radio, they love the club, but they had, the electricity bills for the repeater sites, whatever it was, new equipment buys. And we said, we got to stop that. We got to stop that. It's great that they've been doing it, but it's like, we got to get the club a little more self-sufficient, because dues are not going to cover all your expenses unless you got a lot more members than we do, right? So we looked around, what can we do? When Amazon had the Smile program, does anybody remember the Smile program? Yeah. We participated in that, and that earned us some money. They deprecated that, unfortunately, but we did that when it was there. We started the YouTube channel, and we said, if we're lucky, it will grow big enough that it will earn at least a little bit of money. And it has. It's been 5 years that it earns us a little bit of money. It all goes right into the club. Nothing we've done to earn money has ever been in our names. It's always been in the club name. It goes straight into the club account. Okay. We're now on Patreon. Goes straight into the club account. Okay. Right. So we're donating our time and effort. We will have some questions at the end. Do you have a question?
I do now. Are you guys 501c3?
We are.
We are, yes.
And we will have loads of time for questions at the end, so let's just keep those to the end.
So merchandise, raffles, we did a Deadpool. One of our members bought a new 7300, and he left that screen protector on there for a while, and we started joking about it. Like, Steve, when are you going to pull that off? He's like, I don't know. We said, hey, opportunity here. So we started a Deadpool. So we chose some dates, and we let our members buy a date. Was it $5?
It was $5 a day over 3 months, a 90-day period. When was Steve going to strip the protective film off of his 7300?
And he did. He did eventually strip it off. Luck had it that the date he did that, because it's totally up to him, the day he did that, nobody bought that date. So all the money went to the club. But if somebody had chosen the date, they would have got half the money.
Half the money if you'd gotten the right date.
Right.
We call it a Deadpool. If you ever watched Deadpool the movie, they have a date of when is he going to die, that sort of thing. But
we just had fun with it.
just have fun with it.
But there's all kinds of things you can do. One of the things is always put out a tip jar at all your events. Every now and then somebody throws in $1, $5, whatever they might have in their pocket, but it adds up, right? You don't want to pressure people to giving money, but you want to give them opportunities at the same time, okay? Whether it's your club meeting, whatever's going on. So look for ways to raise money. There's a lot of ways to potentially raise money. All kinds of companies will donate. Mm-hmm. Kroger has a program. If you're not aware, Kroger has a program, and they do it for high schools and all kinds of organizations. You could participate in that. A lot of organizations, if you go and talk to the local manager of the store, they have authority to make donations and stuff. Sometimes you don't necessarily need cash. Maybe you need some materials. Go to your Lowe's, go to your Home Depots, go to different places, see if they are able to do anything. Doesn't hurt to ask, okay? But try to bring in a little bit of money so that not only are your expenses covered, but you can plan for the future. Because equipment needs replaced, needs upgraded, things like that. So lots of different ways to try to raise money. And that helps the club be more interesting. If all your equipment's 40 years old, hey, as long as it still works, right? But it's nice to be able to upgrade things now and then. Maybe get into the digital era, whatever. Okay.
What we're showing here is just an example of one of our cookouts. We're going to talk about food here in a little bit, but everybody likes the food one. But we have a tip jar. We also have, we almost have food at just about all of our events to bring more people out. And Chris and I do barbecue. We do all kinds of things to try to get more people at the event. If you have food, people show up. But we'll talk more about food a little bit later. Now, this next one is tough for some clubs because in this room, we've got clubs that are very small. You might have a dozen or so members. And when we talk about take stock of your current club assets, What we mean is, well, do you have a repeater? Do you have several repeaters? What equipment went into making those repeaters, putting them on the air, the tower, the cabling, all that stuff? You need to be thinking about what are your club assets. For us, Don and Wanda and the club members that came before us, they had a lot of assets, but we had some holes, and we needed to modernize some of those assets as well. So we made a 2 to 5 year plan on how to repair, replace, and add additional assets. For instance, we're just this close to mounting an antenna up on one of our main towers. We've got 2 main towers, so that we have a 6-meter repeater back on the air. Don's had the 6-meter repeater, but it wasn't on the air except at his place, basically, because we didn't have the people that wanted to fool with it. Towers, antennas, internet service, and so on. How many of you, let's see, there wasn't that many, but for those of you that have watched the YouTube channel, some of you that found out we had a YouTube channel, you were watching a series we put together called the Abandoned Repeater series. We took a site that had been in the club's one of the assets, and then it got basically turned back over to the owner. We didn't own the land, and somebody passed away, and we didn't have access to that land because of the son who took it over. Later, we were able to reestablish control over that plot of land where we had that tower, which we pay money for, and we call it the Abandoned Repeater series, and it allows us to put even more repeaters on the air because we have a second location. We're looking at a 3rd location now down in Macquarie County. So take stock of your assets, and as a club, decide where do you want to be 2 to 5 years from now. New repeaters, replacing repeaters, new cabling, new antennas. Chris just went over fundraising. It all takes money, doesn't it? So you still need to have a good accounting of inventory as well as assets.
And by the way, folks, when we say take stock of your assets, don't forget this asset. You've got lots of assets in your company. Even if you're a newer company, you've got people. We use our IT skills quite often. And we have another member who's from IT. And we've got people who do sort of general contracting work. We need people to climb towers and help you pour concrete now and again. Take stock of all your assets. What your people know, what they do for a living, okay? Because all that stuff can help.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have to pay somebody else to do it, you just put money in your club's pocket. Right? That's another way to basically make money for your club. I belong to another club, closer to where I live actually, and they have to pay a company with a truck to come out every time they want to get on their tower. Every time. Part of that is because the tower is not a climbable style of tower. They've talked about replacing it. They've got money in the bank to replace it, and it always gets basically voted down, because then we wouldn't have as much money in the bank. But you're paying several $100s every time you got to get up on your own tower, because you got to hire a truck to get you up there. I mean, that's their choice. That's what the club officers are voting to do. Not sure that would be my choice. Pay once, cry once, start building up your money again. Okay? But get a tower where people can climb it. I think there are people who can climb it in the club, but it's not a climbable tower. So take stock of your human assets as well. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I want to piggyback on something Chris just said about the money that the club may have in the bank. We have a saying at our club, whatever money comes in is going to go right back out. It's not meant to sit there as a nest. We have some money as a nest egg. It's about $1,000. And if we had an emergency, we'd have that money, right, to buy a repeater on emergency or something like that. Most of the money that comes into our club goes right back out on projects. And that's the way it should be. You don't want money just accumulating. What you want is money to help bring more people into your club. The way you do that is through projects. So don't let your money sit there static. Use it for good purposes that helps grow your club. This is the abandoned repeater site. This is probably not the best picture, but what we want to show you is how junky it is.
This was not our land, folks.
This is not ours, yeah. We leased this, and we had to cut down all the trees that you see there have all been cut down now because they were impeding the guidelines and so forth.
With the landowner's approval.
Right, right. Yeah, we're just not sneaking in and cutting down his trees. We did it before. It could have been after and asked for forgiveness, I guess, but we didn't do that. This green little thing hanging on the left-hand side of the slide, that was their old repeater shack. It was an old Vietnam era van that they had converted into a repeater shack. It leaked like a sieve. And we had a fundraiser, didn't we, Chris? And we bought a brand new steel metal building shack for that repeater site. So that's not in the picture here. But if you go back and watch the Abandoned Repeater series, you'll see the steps we went through to get that area where it is today. Number 4. Go ahead, Chris.
Look for ways to advertise, okay? This is always important, and it's something that we decided to address for our club early on. Again, being new hams when we joined the club and talking to the club president and vice president and secretary, we basically warned them we were going to be problem childs. We were going to be problem children. We said, hey, we're going to create a bunch of messes. I hope y'all are prepared for this. Because we wanted to learn everything. We're curious folks. We just wanted to learn why this, how that, you know, what's going on. It's amazing what they had set up in their repeaters, and a lot of clubs have some pretty amazing setups, right? But this is one of those things. How many times have you, raise your hand if you've ever heard some variation of this phrase? Ham radio? Is that still a thing? Does it still exist? We still hear it all the time, don't we? We're trying to help fix that, at least in our own community, and a little bit on YouTube, the best we can, right? So we participate in public events all the time. We're going to talk more about that later, too. Get out there. Make sure people do know we exist and what we can do for them. In fact, our club just had somebody from the state of Kentucky come by because during a couple of the recent events that Kentucky's had, guess what? Cell phones didn't work so well. And they have reached back out to the ham community and they said, we need help getting communication set up, and they want to do it for every county in Kentucky. And we already have a system, and we're one of the folks that they contacted, our club, to help blueprint this and to help make sure every county can have some at least basic level communications with hospitals and emergency services and things. Okay? People forgot. Hams have always done this, but people will forget, right? Let's not let them forget. We can still be helpful for all kinds of events.
And let me go back a couple of slides when we talk about advertising. What do you think that is right there? Now, that skin that we put on our trailer cost the club money. So we had a fundraiser for that. But now that we have it, guess where that trailer is a dozen times a year? We get it out, and we want the community to see it, read it, see that there is actually an active amateur radio club in the area. So advertising, we can't emphasize enough. How many of you participate as just maybe a participant in a cancer walk? Alzheimer's walk. Oh, all kinds. Alzheimer's, cancer, all kinds of walks. If you got a parade, I don't know what kind of parades you might have in your community, but a lot of times you can join a parade.
We have a car show.
We have a car show.
A huge regional car show in Somerset, Kentucky. We go there every year.
Every year. So think about that. You might only have a canopy. You bought a canopy at Walmart, 10 by 10. Get a sign made that has your logo and your club's name on it and everything, and sit under that tent. You might say, oh, Brian, that's boring. It is. But what you're trying is you're trying to raise awareness in your community that you're there. Okay? Sometimes that's all you're doing is just raising awareness.
We've gotten members from showing up to events. They had an air show, which was awesome, at our little airport. We went to that, got 1 or 2 members from that.
At an air show?
An air show. We just showed up. We asked them, we said, hey, we're going to show up. We weren't working it, but we took the trailer, we set up everything. You talk to the public as they walk by. Plant the seeds. You may not hear from them right away. Year or two, or if they've got their grandkids with them or their kids or something, you never know.
Let me ask you something. How many of you have the number of members that you'd like to have? Okay, 1 or 2 of you. How many of you would like to have 5 new members by the end of the year? If you're not going out to these events, you're not plucking 1 or 2 here and there all the time. You're just not plucking them because they don't know you're out there. Many of them just simply don't know. Now, this is, go ahead, Chris, speak about this.
I was just going to say, this was one of the events we did. And I think they contacted us.
They did.
This was a Jeep trail ride. This was a national sponsored event, I believe. We have some great backwoods and trails. My wife and I do off-roading in Kentucky. And so this Jeep group contacted us and say, hey, we're going to be going in some of your backwoods. There's no cell phone service, folks. They said, hey, can you all help provide communications? So, of course, we said yes. And we did. We helped provide communications for them while they were back there.
And then what came out of that?
Out of this one, some gentlemen, one from Tennessee, one from New York, started a brand new gravel race in McCreary County, Kentucky, very rural county. They chose it because it's got great landscapes, and it's a very economically depressed county. And they said, we want to form a new race, and they went to the county and the city, and they said, we want to help you folks because we want to put it here and generate some revenue for you all. The county said, yes, please, anything. They're desperate. There's not much down there, okay? But again, you're out in the hills. There is no cell service 99% of the time. And we've got a whole series of videos on preparing for this race and how to provide communications for a race like that, okay? It takes a lot of work because in those hills and valleys, nothing travels very far. In fact, if you watch our series, Crossband Repeaters, we built seven crossband repeaters. We got it trimmed down. Now we're only using 5, 1 spare, because you just can't do it with any one thing. But with all that time and effort and thought and testing for the last 3 years, we can cover the 3 zones they race in, because they're all over the county. And now these folks just bought another race up in Maine or
New Hampshire.
Maine
New Hampshire.
border. That's been there for 30 years or something. Never had good communications. So the new owners are saying, hey, since you all have done such a good job with us down here, we need to bring you up here and talk to those folks. Because even though they've been around for a long time, they've always had communications problems. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go consult with them a little bit.
Now, you want to talk about an event that gets your people active? Just not this particular Jeep thing, but for the rally that we've been doing the last 3 years. What have we got, Rick? Probably 20, 25 people involved now? 20, 25 members come out and help us with that rally. And one from Virginia, because he watches our YouTube channel.
Yep.
4 from Indiana, because we met them and they watched the YouTube channel. And we're pulling in hams from other areas now. Tennessee as well, yeah.
And, again, it was because they had seen what we had done. They were aware of us. Mm-hmm. And they contacted us, okay? Now, obviously we have to do that on a volunteer basis, but then when they can, they will donate to the club. They have a successful rally, they'll donate to the club, right?
Yeah, we can't make money on these things. We have to volunteer.
That's right. But we like the technical challenge. In fact, on that race, last 2 years for that race, there's been more ham volunteers at this race than there were regular volunteers. They've been very impressed with what we've been able to do, and it has to do with our membership. We're very thankful for our membership that they've been willing to get out there. It's pretty much an all-day thing.
Yeah. Number 5, attend as many hamfests as you can in a given year. Now,
you've already got this step
You've
down.
got this one done. Chris and I will travel to Hamvention down in Florida, and we'll also travel to Huntsville for the Hamfest in Huntsville, because it's also relatively nearby. And we also go to our local Hamfest. Not as many, but Cave City is a big one for us.
And the one in Louisville.
One in Louisville, another one in Richmond occasionally. That's all in Kentucky, of course. You guys probably have Hamfests that are nearby wherever you live, or maybe you put on a Hamfest. There's a lot of effort that goes into one of those. The reason you want to go to these Hamfests is, again, for ideas, okay? And you're meeting other clubs, just like you are today. You're meeting other people that are in clubs. How do they do things? How do they raise money? What kind of projects are they working on? What kind of events do they work? This is at Huntsville. Now, most of us in this room remember COVID, of course, and for a while there, we didn't have a Hamfest here, and this was the year that they had just come out of COVID, and you could wear a mask, but you didn't have to. But they do a great job down in Huntsville. It's not as big as this one, but it's, you know, it's a great Hamfest. And we're meeting people all the time, getting ideas.
Some good food down there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Just saying. There's a lot of good barbecue down that way.
Communicate to your members. Social media, email, all the stuff, right? All the stuff that's out there to communicate. Maybe it wouldn't be surprising, but it's a little surprising maybe, how little so many clubs communicate with their own members. And it's unfortunate. We've tried to do everything we can here. Now, do we still occasionally get a member when something has come up and they're like, I had no idea that was happening this weekend? It's not our fault. we try to communicate with our members. We've had our website. We've had a calendar on our website. We announce it 2 nets a week. We have a couple more, but the 2 main nets a week. We always announce what's coming up. We've got Facebook, okay, the YouTube channel. I mean, we communicate with our members the best we can. So
Groups.io, the email list.
Oh yeah. So whenever somebody occasionally comes along, I had no idea. Maybe they weren't trying, right? But we try. So take advantage of these things. Communicate with your members so they know when to show up, right? You want to grow and keep members. We got to do stuff. Make it interesting for them. Do projects. Brian started something shortly after we joined the club.
Well, I went to Hamvention, and I got a chance to meet Eric Hoffer, and I'm blanking on his call sign right now, but he's a ham radio crash course, or ham radio concepts, and he's out of Vero Beach, Florida. And Eric's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I was just talking to Eric, and I was interviewing for a YouTube video and stuff, and he says, so what are you doing with other clubs? And it struck me, and I thought, well, okay. And then I asked him, I said, what do you do as a club to keep your members involved? He says, well, we have one night a month where we build things. Well, we weren't doing that as a club. We didn't have one night a month where we were building things.
Let's ask that question real fast. When's the last time anybody in here actually built something for ham radio? Some little kit?
About half of you, but there's a lot of you haven't. Yeah. And I'm not saying you have to build stuff all the time, but we build things. We built crossband repeaters. We've built antennas. We've built an auto power on, power off, so your radio comes on in the car and turns off in the car without the timer thingy that's built into the radio. We've built other things. We built a QRP rig.
The QRP radio.
We've done all kinds of builds, and we have this third Thursday of the month called Hands On with El Cara, and it was because I got an idea from Eric.
And we have presenters sometimes.
Yeah.
We don't use our club meeting for like presentations and stuff. We try to keep the club meetings relatively short. If there's business to discuss, we cover that. But these are the events where we have our presentations. Anybody wants to talk on a subject, right? We've had people talk to us. Tim Duffy from DX Engineering and some of their engineers.
The late Bob Heil.
Yeah, Callum McCormick.
Yeah.
From DX Commander gave a presentation. The late Dr. Bob Heil gave a great presentation. So sometimes we'll do that. But that's the event we have for building stuff or having presenters, whether they're inside the club or outside the club.
Exactly. This is me doing a net. I've got my script on the right hand monitor, and then I'm keeping track of who's checking in. And then I've got QRZ. If I come across a call sign I've never heard before, I'm looking them up on QRZ. But get involved in your own nets as a club. Now, some of you probably have nets that go back years and years and years, and that's great. And that means you're just that much further along. We use our nets to also help train our people, because we always encourage them, especially new folks, to run a net. How many of you get mic fright even to this day? Yeah.
The thought of activating a park and having a pileup keeps you up at night.
We have people that we encourage people to do our nets. We've got the script. They just have to read it and then just keep track of who's checking in. But that gives them an opportunity to be involved. It's not just the same person doing the net every time. Now, don't misunderstand. We have people who do the nets all the time too, but we're always encouraging others to do the nets.
And this slide right here is from a video we did to help show people how do you start and run a net. Not everybody's done it before. Not every club may have done it before. So we said, hey, let's get this documented and on YouTube. So anybody who may want to do this can kind of see, how do you do this, okay? We're trying to share information like that. That's why we decided to do a club-oriented channel.
Somebody's on the YouTube channel. Number 7, if you do not already have a monthly meeting, you've got to have one. You need to have somebody taking minutes. You need to have bylaws. You need to go through the proper process, if at all possible. Now, if there's just 2 or 3 of you right now because you're starting brand new, put that on your to-do list to get a monthly meeting on the calendar. It needs to be consistent so that people know when to show up. Now, Chris and I are not going to sit here and tell you that out of 100 members, we get 100 people show up to a monthly meeting. That doesn't happen. Okay, there's still a lot of folks that just don't come, but always give them the opportunity. And like Chris said, we keep our monthly meetings relatively short. We do our financials, so everybody knows where we are on the bank, and we also talk about what we did last month and what we're about to do. So everybody's aware of what we're about to do. And it's about an hour, hour and a half. That's it. Okay, we don't hang around. Well, that's not true. Sometimes we hang around a little bit, but
If there's a new project proposed, whoever's at the meeting gets to vote on it.
get to vote on it, right,
We don't have to have a quorum of members. It's a quorum of people at the meeting.
right. This was a location of having a monthly meeting. I believe this was at the college, going back some years. Number 8,
As we talked about earlier, advertise what your club is doing. We've had a calendar on our website for I don't know how many years now. We just refreshed our website. Feel free to check it out, elcara.net. But have a calendar that's published. Be consistent. If it's on the calendar, make sure it happens. You may be the only one there to make it happen, but it happened, and people had the opportunity because you never know when people are going to show up for things. And then stuff that's coming up, we advertise on the nets twice a week. If anybody's participating in our club at all, they should be aware of what's coming on, what's about to happen. Okay, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We don't want it to be a surprise, so we try to advertise. So we've got stuff. If you look at our website and our calendar, you'll see some things that happen all the time. They're, populated through the end of the year. They're going to happen every week and every month. Anything new comes along, several of us have the ability to put something new on the calendar, and then they can send out notifications and things.
how many of you have a yearly fish fry or picnic? Several of you. Great. That's more hands than I thought I'd see. We have a fish fry every year. How many of you have a yearly park activation for your club? How many of you have a yearly special event for your club? One of those 3-letter call signs, special event station. We do that at the car show. We have a special event station at the car show. So the reason I'm going over these is you're adding more things on the calendar that people can come to and participate in. Okay. Now, we had a really good group of people ahead of Chris and I this morning talking about digital modes and things like that. That's a great way to get some of your new people that have mic fright involved. But we're big on Parks on the Air, POTUS and SOTUS. We're really big on those. Those are a lot of fun, and it's a great way to get people involved too.
Field day, winter field day.
Field day, yeah, for sure.
And set up stations and let new people get on the radio. They may not have an HF radio yet, but they can get on the radio. They can do third-party traffic. We get kids on the radio. You want to get a pilot?
You want to get a pilot, yeah.
Get a youngster on there.
Put a kid on there.
Yeah.
Or a woman. And I'm not meaning that as in any way, it's positive. That lady's voice gets a pile up. We love it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Chris said this a little bit earlier, but meet current and certainly your new members where they are. We mentioned this a little while ago at the very beginning of the presentation of they go to a club meeting and they get such a bad taste in their mouth they never go again. Man, Chris and I we just shake our heads. We always try to meet them where they are. Do you have your tech license? No, not yet. Can we help you get it? Can we help you with materials to study? Website to study? We've got another slide coming up right after this one here in just a second, but meet them. Well, if they don't even have their tech license, what do you expect them to do?
And what should they know how to do?
Right.
They showed up to a meeting, they've got to have some level of interest. They may or may not pursue it, but try to give them some help. In fact, what do we have on Thursday nights?
Thursday nights we have a 10-meter net.
And guess where on the 10-meter band it happens? Right where the techs can participate. And we announce it all the time. You got your tech license, here's something you can do.
Yeah, we've got two 2-meter nets, and we have a 10-meter net. That way they get a chance to play with their HF gear, if they have it. We have gear they can borrow. Don has, I don't know how many grab-and-go kits.
You know, like many of you, he's a pretty much lifetime ham, and he's got a lot of stuff. And he's generous with it. He allows people to borrow it and everything. So, but yeah, if you've got some older equipment that somebody could borrow, have a training session with them on it, get them on a 10-meter net.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to put this next slide up, and some of you are going to nod your head, and some of you are going to go, I hadn't thought about that. How many of you do VE testing at your club level? Wonderful. We have 100 members-ish. Guess how many are VEs? Who said 50? 50.
That might be low.
50. That's not to brag per se, but what it is that we put an emphasis on it. Where do you think we get those 5 extra members every year? VE testing.
Show the next slide.
That's a volunteer examiner. You're able to actually proctor the exams. There's several organizations that can do it. We are an ARRL affiliated club, so we go through their process. There's also Laurel and a few others.
Even in the heart of COVID, we were doing testing in person, following protocols. We had people driving from hours away because nobody was doing testing. Online wasn't happening yet, and we were getting people from all over our entire region, from several states. We get people from testing sessions. We probably get 10 a year, 5 to 10 a year, easy. You want to grow your club? Start testing. Have a packet that you can hand out to folks. You just got your tech. Here's a nice little packet of information to help get you started. And in there, you're going to have some of the things that your club can do to help them and benefits of your club. Yeah.
Perfect. Guess where we have done testing? We have a Dairy Queen meetup. Well, it's not at Dairy Queen now, but we used to meet up at Dairy Queen on Wednesdays. Now, most of our hams are retired, so they can go on a Wednesday morning, and they can go to Dairy Queen. We've since moved it to Frisch's. It doesn't matter where you have it. It just has to be food. Okay.
I mean, Dairy Queen remodeled. What could we do?
Yeah, Dairy Queen remodeled, so we couldn't help her. So we do testing at that Dairy Queen. We have probably a dozen or more people that show up at the Frisch's, and out of that dozen, 6 or 8 of them are VEs. We can do testing right then.
If you stop for gas in Somerset, we could probably give you a test at the gas station.
Yeah.
We have a lot of VEs.
Takes 3. So we always have 3, like always. So make it a point of emphasis at your club. You're going to get members out of it as well. Okay? How many of you could really like to have 5 new members by the end of the year? Raise your hand again. Testing alone will probably get you more than that.
Every year.
Every
5
year.
or 10 every year.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Every other month. And so when you say you can even go to, even if you went to a gas station, or the places where you go to eat, how do you advertise that? We advertise on the ARRL website.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you advertise to non-hams that they're going?
Typically, when we're saying we're doing a Frisch's test, and it doesn't happen a lot, it's somebody who's come into one of our monthly meetings, or they've came onto the net one night, and they'd like to get their general or their extra, and we'll say, well, we can provide you the test next Wednesday. It just depends if they're ready. We don't advertise it in a paper or the ARRL. We just let them know, and we make ourselves available. Yes, ma'am.
If somebody hops on our repeater and somebody's talking to them, and if they mention a question, they're like, hey, come out to the farm, come out to our HQ. We can get 3 people together because there's 2 already there. Or
Don and Wanda are already there. We just need one more.
Or we're going to be at Frisch's tomorrow morning. Or You know, so we've got we do quarterly, and we publish those. But we're willing to test people. If there's 3 of us together,
We're every other month.
our president always has the stuff in his truck or van.
Always.
Everywhere he goes.
He's got it with him all the time. Now, he's a lifer. I mean, he truly is. I mean, he lives and breathes this stuff. So he's got the materials with him all the time. Bonus! Somebody went, just woke somebody up.
We told you.
We told you.
Food.
Where's the food at?
How many people are disappointed there's no food here in this room?
That's right. We
Folks,
came, oh, go ahead, Chris.
You know, we joke about this all the time in our club, in a lot of our videos, but I think it's just very true. We have several members, Brian and I and 1 or 2 others, that own smokers and like to barbecue and stuff, but, you know, whether it's just a potluck for field day, if 2 or 3 of us ever get together, there's probably food there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but especially for stuff like field days and we do our fish fry and Christmas party and you know, we came up with a smoke and POTA. Smoke some meats and go to a park and get as many of your members to do a POTA, especially if they've never done one. We're always thinking about things to do, but if there's going to be a few people there, we usually think about food. It's not always fancy, but people like to have drinks and maybe some snacks or some food or something there. So make sure that you don't forget this stuff. Just make a potluck. You know?
Those are the 10 things we brought today. You'll have your own ideas. But what was not the first thing, but the thing we talked about first to make these things happen? What do you have to have first? Leadership and energy. And if you don't have those things, if you don't have a core set of people, maybe it's just you right now, but maybe you can, you know, get your buddy to help you on this or that every now and then. We're up to where we got 15 or 20 people that are active. But in the early stages when Chris and I started with the club, there were 3, 4 people that were active.
When we were doing our first big project, which was finishing building out the emergency communications trailer, I don't know how many days. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm an hour and a half away from this. But this is my main club. I don't know how many days it was me and Don. Because I was willing to go down. I had a day off, and I said, we need to get some work done. Don, I'm going to come down. Or Brian was there by himself. And we've got more and more people now where, especially when they live there in town, when they've got some time off, they'll go by and work on something or troubleshoot something, right? It spreads.
It spreads.
But somebody's got to start.
Somebody's got to start it. Somebody's got to be that germination, right? And then it catches like wildfire, okay? All right, we're going to open it up to questions now for the next 10 minutes or so. I see a lady's hand up in the back. Yes, ma'am. Find new members. I heard the question. Right. Right. Those are great questions. Now, on the first point, and I was being a little bit sarcastic, but not really. I think we had about 70 members when Chris and I joined, but most of them were aging out. Okay, that was just the reality. I think the average age was 70-something.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said we were the babies.
We were
at
the
50.
kids. So trying to get them to come out and be volunteers is really hard. Not because they wouldn't want to, it's because they've done stuff in the past, and the club had gone into this real kind of lull. And even though Chris and I were starting to do things and wanting them to get to come out, we just had a hard time getting them to come out. Now, some did, don't get me wrong. We had some that did, but not many. So what did we do? Did we say, well, we can't get anybody to come out? What did we do? We got new members, people who want to be busy.
We came out, and we encouraged as many people as we can to come out and we work on new members.
Now, the second part of your question was, one more time? Right. Right. Great question. We've got a relationship with a club up in Indiana, and they come down and help us with the rally. They had a club of some, we'll just say, older folks, and they're not willing to do anything new. They started a new club. I'm not saying you don't try, but sometimes, folks, you can't move a mule if they don't want to. You have to be that locomotive yourself. And if you have to start a new club, you start a new club.
The ham that we had come out and help us for the rally this year from Virginia, they just started a new club. I think
Started a brand new one.
I think there's one in the area, but I think it had some of those same kinds of challenges.
Right.
You can work with them for a while, but if you can't make progress, you may have to make a new club. If the new members can't help.
Right. Before I saw your hand. Yes, sir. In the back. I'm glad it worked for you. It is possible. And like I said, I want you to try. Yeah, I hear you. Yes, sir. Yes. Exactly right. Right. You're going to have to be proactive. Don't be reactive with them.
For
Go ahead.
for the rally that we've done 3 years in a row, right? We're like Santa Claus. As soon as the rally's over, well, 364 more days till the next rally. It's a big event. It takes a lot of work. We want to make sure people are aware of it and make sure that our volunteer base will be active again next year as much as possible. We don't want people to go, oh, I would have done it again, but I decided to book a camping trip that weekend because I forgot about it. We keep it in front of people, okay? And we do projects throughout the year. Things happen, but you do the best you can, right, to keep stuff moving forward.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say that what our club does is we offer free membership the first year, and we usually get 7 to 10 new members a year that way, and it doesn't cost us anything.
Right.
Newsletters, digital, invite us to club meetings.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea, especially your young folks.
I thought we charged double the first year.
No worries. Yes, ma'am.
You said not to let the money sit in the bank. So we have a very hefty bank account, and the past treasurer saw his job, I think, as protecting the money.
Correct.
And we have a new treasurer this time, and a couple new people in the board, but I'm wondering how you encourage folks to get out of that mindset.
The best way to get out of that mindset is to have projects that are going to require you spending money.
Here's an addendum to that, folks. How many people here right now today are club officers? Well, the club officers usually vote on things, and maybe the voting members too, depending on your club. So if you have officers who are not willing to get off the X, start running for officer. Okay, sometimes we can try to change from within. You always want to try that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, that's, we don't do that. Perfect question. We want our members to talk. I have a club that I'm involved with down in Tennessee. They just check in, and that's all they do. And I'm not saying it's the wrong way to do it. That's just the way they do it. Chris and I got used to Don and Wanda telling us their day. And that's how we run a net. What did you do today?
Encourage them to talk a little bit.
Just talk. Just say something. Now, I encourage the members down in the Tennessee club, tell me what's going on in your ham radio world today. Did you buy a new radio? Did you get a new antenna? Did you put up a tower? Did you replace coax? What did you do today in your ham radio or this week in your ham radio life? And try to get them to say something.
And just a tip, folks, if you have a YouTube channel or start one, encourage your folks to record these awesome projects that they're working on, because you can't be everywhere all at once. We've had a question over there in the corner for
Sorry,
quite a while.
my problem.
We do back Ohio, when people do the test, we give it one year free membership.
That's a great idea.
And that helps us out.
That's a great idea. One more question, then we got to go. Yes, sir.
How many people do you usually get, on average, checking into your net?
21, 23, 20-ish, out of 100. That, folks, most of you have heard this, especially because most of us are older in this room. In an organization, it's the 10% that are always there for you.
Last comment for you about new members. Lots of people are working with RF in their community. How about, this is something some hams don't like, and that's GMRS. 50% of your GMRS people are ham licensed.
Right.
So they are perfect. The other 50%.
We had a club in Lexington say, oh, GMRS is not ham radio.
Well,
Club.
In fact, not only did they say that, they were offered a free GMRS repeater. And they turned it down because it's not real ham radio.
It's not ham radio.